Hi everyone, and welcome to tonight's SAGA session. My name is Tobias Olsson-Gran, and I'm hosting these sessions. And you're all very welcome to join us in this evening of talking about game design contests. And with us tonight we have Aaron Kempkes, who will talk about his experiences from being a participant and a judge for different contests in board game design. And I should also mention that the SAGA Sessions is connected to the SAGA contest in Sweden. It's the Swedish Annual Game Design Awards. And if you want to know more about the contest, you can go over to saga.boardgames.com and read more. Okay, without further ado, welcome, Aaron, and I'm very glad that you can join us.
I'm super glad to be here. It's gonna be a good time, and I already see a couple people that I know. They're sitting there taking notes and probably gonna like Facebook message me every time that I make a little mistake. So I'm kidding. No, it's great to be here. I'm excited to talk about game design contests and just kind of throw stuff back and forth and see what all you guys want to know as well. I don't have to talk for a whole 40 minutes. We can have a whole like panel conversation. That sounds fun to me. But yeah, I've been entering game design contests since 2019. The first game design contest I entered was when the Board Game Design Lab was doing contests with Gabe Barrett. My first, what kind of got me hooked on game design contests, I'll be completely honest, is like I entered that contest not expecting anything, ended up being a runner-up. And from that point on, I was like, okay, this is kind of addictive. I want to keep doing this. And then, from there, I've met a lot of awesome people in a lot of different countries, been to places that I never imagined I would ever be. I never thought I would be in Aalborg, Denmark, or Venice for that matter. So I'm very thankful for all the relationships I've been able to build and just being able to sit here and talk with all of you. I mean, there are so many people that I've encountered that are amazing designers, and they have, pushed me to be better and given me feedback. Great example is this last time at Festival. I was at Festival here, gosh, I can't believe it's 2 weeks now, 2 weeks ago. And, my game is going to evolve to a better place because of the feedback that I received. And the community of that contest is absolutely amazing. So I honestly think if you strip away the competitive aspect, if you strip away everything else, what really honestly matters is building relationships, making your games better, putting it out there for people to look at. Because honestly, yeah, it's great to win a contest or it's great to be a finalist, but one of the most important things is to push your game design along. And I actually kind of use game design contests as a way to push my designs along. Because I don't know about you guys, but it's very easy to procrastinate, right? So if you have a deadline or a guideline to follow or something to go off of instead of just sitting on your couch being like, yeah, I'll work on that next Tuesday. Like that really helps. It really helps to have some sort of deadline or some sort of guideline to follow. So basically what I'm going to be talking about is the different ones that I've entered, kind of give you an idea of how they all differ based off of my experience, and also, kind of give you my insight from the judging side. So I actually was a judge for Cardboard Edison this year, and that was a really interesting perspective. Because I was able to, see it from the other side, having competed in it, multiple years. So whenever you're ready, Tobias, I guess I can start rambling.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay.
I don't
All
want to
right.
stop you.
Perfect. So, what I would suggest, if you are wanting to entertain the idea of entering design contests, let's start with that, because the people that have already entered game design contests, they kind of have an idea of what the process is first, and they all follow kind of the same process, right? It's just there's some variations between the different contests. So, usually there is a submission deadline. You have to submit something, along the lines of a sell sheet or a video, or the one in France has a technical sheet where you have to detail the first 3 turns of your game. Um, those documents are going to be like a resume is for a job. If your document that you send, like a pitch to Festival, right? Or a pitch to Saga, for instance, if your document that you send does not convey a feeling or show something interesting about the game or why it's different, it's just like if your resume has nothing interesting in it or is bland. They're just going to put it on the throwaway pile. That doesn't mean that the game is bad. That doesn't mean that the idea is terrible or not worthy. It just means that part of game design contests is marketing yourself. Now, I went to college for broadcasting, took a marketing class. Completely honest with you, I disliked it. So marketing is not necessarily like a love of mine. There are people in the industry that I know that are really great at it, like Devin Metlin, right? He's very good at marketing. That is not one of my strong suits. So when you are trying to enter a contest, you got to figure out what your strong suits are. Okay. You got to figure out what you're best at. So are you best at the, specific game mechanics? Are you best at like articulating rules? That's what you need to focus on. So we all have something that's a strength. Some of us are really good at graphic design. Some of us aren't. Some pitches don't need great graphic design. They just need to have the right idea. They need to convey the right thing. So if you're just starting out and wanting to enter game design contests, I will tell you, my submission to Board Game Design Lab back in 2019, I look at that to this day, and I wonder how I actually made it through. And the only thing I can think of is that they saw the potential in the game. And there's that X factor. So there's an X factor that, you can't predict, right? So my first game that's going to be published soon, I almost did not enter it into Prima Archimede in Italy. It was kind of a last minute decision. I almost did not enter it. And that's going to end up being my first physical published game. So that's the unpredictability of it, right? You have this idea. You think it's awesome. You think it's really great. You want to put it out there. You want to see what the judges think, right? It may not be what that contest specifically is looking for. It may not be conveyed in the right way. It may not, there's a lot of potential things that it may not be, but that doesn't mean that you stop with it, right? You keep going. So if you enter one contest and you don't do something, enter another. Obviously there are guidelines with certain contests, so make sure to read the rules. Make sure that you're following the rules of the contest, but at the same time, enter contests, and if you fail at them, look at the game design itself and find out, why did that fail? What didn't I do right? Did I not, have my pitch document the right way? Is it formatted strange, or is there too much text, not enough pictures? These are all questions that I've had to ask myself over the time of entering all of these contests and competing in them. I've done 66 contests, which is just absolutely insane to think about. But it's like every single time you enter one, it gets easier. It gets easier to kind of know what is needed, why they're asking for a certain thing, and how you can actually elevate your game into a final, or at least, get it in front of, a jury panel or something, play testers even, A good example is Hippodice in Germany. I entered Hippodice many times, um, managed to make it through this year into the semifinals, did not make the finals. But the feedback that I received was really good. It was really helpful. And even then, just being a semifinalist in that contest, there was a slight chance of your game being pitched to a publisher. So some of these larger international contests, they have like a secondary thing where, depending on the result, you can still get a chance for a publisher to see your game. Um, one of uh, one of the most interesting ones, in my opinion, is Premio Archimede out of Italy. That one is different in a lot of ways. They actually, when you submit into that contest, they essentially act as an agent for your game. Um, that almost that almost made me not enter, because I wasn't sure of the ins and outs of it. But that is why I have a game published right now. It's because I took that chance. I am, I went through the process. They were very nice to work with, and blunt like feedback should be, right? They flat out sent me feedback for a couple of my entries and said, "I don't see how this is going to work. You know, let's work on it and see what can happen." Um, those types of contests, I think, are very, very important because you're getting in front of a group of people that have seen dozens and dozens and dozens of designs, right? So they're giving you their idea of what they see, from the eventual jury panel of publishers that attends Venice. They're telling you what they think is going to be needed. Um, there are obviously pros and cons to that type of style. Like on the flip side, you got Fastful, right? Where the whole thing is it's the experience of networking with people and coming up with a board game design, the fun of the process, the pomp and circumstance, right? So you enter different contests for different things, or different events for different things, right? So in this case, if you're looking to, work with somebody to get published, you might want to enter, the one in Venice because they have a track record of that. If you want the experience and you want to meet a lot of awesome people, which I've met a lot of awesome people who are in the chat right now, um, you know, enter something like Festival or Saga or something that allows you to get out in front of people, show them your designs, and have that insight. um, One of the things I really like about Europe is Europe does it differently, right? So when I judged Cardboard Edison, one of the things that I've always wished would be the case with Cardboard Edison is that there's like an in-person ceremony or something. But it's all done, like the judges get together, and test the games and everything, and then the results are released online. Whereas Europe tends to have a lot of in-person events, and I think that social aspect is really, really cool. Um, over the last 7 years of entering all of these events, the thing that really sticks with me is um, the different ways that every country that I've entered sees game design, or like the different types of games they like. So if you're looking at your game design right now and you're like, which contest should I enter? Well, really honestly looking at games that have won those contests, have been featured in those events, looking at the last 2 years or 3 years of nominees or winners really gives you an idea of what they're looking for. So, I mean, a good example, I'm going to really butcher this because I can't speak French, but Boulogne-Billancourt, I say Boulogne-Billancourt, but I know that's not right. That contest has been around for like over 40 years, right? And that one, I've been a finalist in a couple of times, and the finalist meeting is really cool because they get you together, you have lunch, you present your game at this thing called Korea Games in Paris, and it's super cool. and you get to meet a lot of people, and you get to in my case, struggle with the language barrier a little bit, but in a great way. Like I've had so many people that are willing in all of these different events to translate for me, or you know uh, give me feedback on how to like present something so it's more understandable. They give me the advice to slow down because you're speaking too fast, which that's what happens. We're Americans, we talk loud. um, but uh, these types of contests where you can like sit down and meet other people and you know basically just see the different perspectives of other players helps more with your game design than 1,000 play tests in your home area, right? I mean, I could go play my game 1,000 times at my local playtest meeting, love them to death, they're awesome, but they don't have all of that other outside experience, or the different perspectives. And that's honestly, if you break it down, that's really the most important part of entering contests, is getting your game in front of people, of different cultures, different races, different orientations. Like, it's really important to have that different perspective, so you know how your game could potentially be perceived, right? And the colorblind accessibility thing, for example, something I wouldn't have thought of that like 5-6 years ago. Now, like my game caps that was in Festival last year, I had symbols on the caps for people that needed to distinguish the colors but can't see them properly. So it really opens you to these things that you wouldn't have initially thought about with your game design. So if you guys are interested, I can kind of give you an idea of some of these contests, and what they're looking for, at least like what I perceive that they're looking for from the past, and then I can open it up a little bit for like a question here or there if you guys would like, and then I can keep going. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so speaking of the contest in Paris, this is the page that I was greeted with. It was a little intimidating because obviously I don't speak French, but there is a translate button which I will find here. I think we'll just translate this to English from this page. There we go, perfect. So they have done this for, as you can see, they've done this for years and years and years and years. And this contest was one of the first major international ones that I entered. And it's, they make it a very simple process, but it's also a very strenuous process, right? There's usually 120 to 125 entries. They whittle that down to 30, which is really, really tough, right? So to even make the 30 is awesome. But then from there, they go to 10 finalists. Now, the thing about this is, I mean, if you look at this list right here, I don't know if you guys can see this, but those are some of the people that have entered this contest. I mean, they're some of the some of the best designers in our industry. So I mean, they're really like articulating, hey, this is a contest that, yeah. But the cool thing about this contest is that even though it's a little bit rough if you don't make that final, when you make that final, there are a lot of benefits to it. And I know that I was talking to Chris actually at Festival, or leaving Festival, about this, about like the rate of return, or return on investment, I guess is what I should say, for each of these contests. Like, why would somebody from the United States enter a contest like this, right? And the only answer that I can give you that really makes the most sense is just this type of contest. I mean, you look at some of these games, like I love Abalone. I've played Takedo a bunch. I mean, it's just those opportunities are nice to have. And if you can actually get there and do that, like you get to network, you get to show your game, to people. You could potentially even meet some of these designers. You could be competing against them. I mean, in the long run, that's really what's the coolest part about this is like you just don't know where it's going to take you. And obviously read the rules. You can get stuck making a mistake if you don't read the rules. But like going to the United States, for instance, right? There's the Ion Award. The Ion Award is a different process. They require a video, right? So it's telling you every single time that you enter a contest, read the rules. Obviously, that sounds self-explanatory, but read the rules, because if you don't read the rules, you don't know like how you can package your game into something that they're going to look at, right? So for the Ion Award, they want a 6-minute video pitch, they want the rules, and they want pictures of the game. So where some contests are like, oh, your design can be kind of just starting. This one wants you to present something that looks like a final, not necessarily completely final product, but something that is playable, that has gotten to the point where it's been tested and everything. So you wouldn't want to submit something here that you've just started, because it's not going to pan out. That doesn't mean that the design isn't great. It just means it's not going to pan out, right? And just kind of going through here, like this was the one in Italy I was telling you guys about. I mean, they have submissions open 2027 right now. This process is really interesting because they actually will, they'll tell you after testing your game, you actually send your game to Venice, right? They will test your game. They play every single game that is entered into this contest. And that was the biggest draw for me. Because a lot of times, actually most of the time, what will happen is you'll have a contest, and you'll be part of like a curation process or a rules reading process or something like that, where you have to pass that like resume stage to actually get into the contest. This one, they just flat out play your game. I mean, I honestly don't know how they play like like 250 games, but they do. And they give really great feedback, and they're very efficient at what they do. So they obviously have a good system down. Coming from the side of judging, which I'll get to here in a few minutes, coming from the side of judging, like this is a lot of work. So it's impressive from the onset that this is what they do. But they basically just send you an email and they say, no, it's not admitted to the finals. Done. Now I'm going to put an asterisk next to that. If they say it's not admitted to the finals, you could potentially, if you have some sort of direction that it can go and they have time and they're willing, they might entertain the idea. But generally not admitted to finals means no, done. Admitted to finals, I mean, congratulations if you make it to that stage. I mean, that's really awesome. In development is, I think, where this one is really cool, because in development, just means that they're going to go back and forth with you and give you suggestions, and you're going to build the design, and you're going to both play testing on each other's ends, and then you're going to come together with suggestions either on your end or their end, and you're going to have a conversation about it. This very much makes me feel like it's more of the process of like what you do with a publisher when they have your game. So this actually was really cool. And I enjoyed the process, even though sometimes it can be frustrating to be told, that's not going to work, get rid of it. It kind of prepares you for what could potentially happen if you're working with a publisher where they say, nah, I don't like that, get rid of that. And some publishers, obviously, they won't even like clue you in on the process. So this is actually pretty cool. And then, if you're picked as one of the finalists and you go to Venice, there's a whole ceremony. And generally, publishers will talk to you there, whether or not they liked your game. And then, you get a trip to Venice and you get to see a lot of fun things. I have to say, though, last trip that I had to Venice for this, unfortunately, my sister fell. So it was a bit rough, but still a great time. She's okay, by the way. And this is this I would say if you're looking for the full process to kind of know how things go, this would be one to try. Even if you just submit one entry, it's worth a try from somebody who's done it a couple times now. It's pretty interesting. And then obviously, you've got Hippodyce in Germany. Hippodyce in Germany is literally like the largest contest in the world by entries. I think the only one that doesn't eclipse it on a general year is Cardboard Edison out of the United States. Hippodyce is really tough to get into. I mean, there's literally like 300 entries and they pick like 25. So even being a semifinalist in this contest is crazy because you've beaten out 275 other potentially really great games. So yeah, this is one that I would just, if you want to enter this one, it's a great contest to enter. But keep in mind that the selection process for this one is very, very tough. And it took me 6 years to even make the semifinals. But who knows? Like you could enter right now and make the finals, and have one of the winning games. Like it's all. I don't want to say a flip of the coin. It's more of like hitting it in the right year, right? The game that I made through this year, like I entered 2 years ago, and they told me to try again. So, it just depends on what they're looking for. And then also, I even though they don't classify themselves as a contest, it's an event. It's a really nice, awesome event. I have to give a shout out to Fastival. Obviously, you can submit your board games starting in August of this year. Love you guys. Also, SAGA, who is sponsoring this talk and everything. I will see some of you in Sweden here in a month, so I'm looking forward to that. SAGA is an awesome contest to enter, and run by some really great people. Another thing too is something to keep in mind. You can actually enter contests through the Game Crafter, which I've done a couple times. These Game Crafter contests, you actually have to build like a shop page. So this is different in the sense of like you have to build a whole like presentation. So like this one's the Fur, Feathers, and Fun contest, the Pool Builder challenge. I actually judged the Dice Mitigation challenge. So I'll just give you an example here on Dice Mitigation challenge. So it was a situation where you had to implement dice in some way. And not make it completely luck based. So that was my prompt for this contest. The judge is generally somebody who has done something with the Game Crafter, or just somebody that wants to judge a contest, and they'll ask for submissions, and then everybody just submits their designs. And as you can tell, you don't need amazing graphic design ability to do something like this. I mean, you just put together a page, right? This one I'm going to show you guys here, just to give you an idea of how this process goes. And those of you who have judged or have been part of the curation process know this, right? So the Game Crafter, the way that it works is they'll do voting, and then after the voting process, there's usually 20, right? And they'll be designated as a semifinalist. The judge's discretion allows that person to choose a game that is not a semifinalist. Obviously, this is, it can be controversial, I guess, but I want to show you guys one of the games that I chose as a finalist. You guys might know, Knock and Roll. Another game that I chose as a finalist, even further down the list, this one here. So, these were all great games up here that didn't get chosen. But I looked at all 90 some entries, and those jumped out at me as something that I would like to try, because as a finalist in a Game Crafter contest, you actually have them made on the Game Crafter and they are sent to that judge. So for me, I got the games, and I got together my playtest group here in Lincoln, Nebraska, in the United States, and we played games, and we put all of our scores together. So while I decided to, pick the games as the judge, right? I brought in other perspectives to pick the eventual winner, which the eventual winner, I believe, is being published soon. So that was really cool. That was really cool to hear that I I had a hand in that process. That my friends and I had a hand in that process. Actually, this is the game that won. If it's going to pull it up, yeah. So I mean, there's even stuff that you wouldn't expect, like the World Original Design Contest in China. I entered that one too. They have a completely different process, way different process. So, to not bore you guys with all of the different processes, I guess I would just say, if you're interested in entering a contest, go to one of these pages and just look and see what they want, what they like, previous winners, previous nominees, previous whatever, and use that to help you decide how you want to proceed. So at this point, I'm going to stop for a couple of seconds before I get into the judging aspect more. Do any of you guys have any questions so far? Don't be shy.
Yeah, I have one question, so I will just go with that. You mentioned that some of the contests have different constraints, and I suppose that a lot of the contests are open for everything, basically. Which would you prefer? Which do you think sparks the imagination in the best way? And yeah.
Okay, so I know people that really like you have to design a game with 4 red pieces and 20 cards. Those can be fun. Like for instance, that's one of the reasons that Game Rush at Fastival is so popular and so awesome, because you have 48 hours to come up with something, right? You have 48 hours, and usually the constraint is something like a used to be like a random word or whatever. Now it's like take pieces from these games, theme, whatever. I liked that in the beginning because it helped to get the creative juices going a little bit. Now I'm thinking of it from the standpoint of like, I want to get games that I'm working on out in front of as many eyes as possible to get those different perspectives. So I think that they both have a place, right? The Game Crafter is a great example of a contest that has a requirement, right? The dice mitigation challenge. Your game had to have dice. I mean, if you can't enter a game without dice, it just wouldn't work, right? Whereas there's no constraint on some of these major international contests, because they're casting a wide net and they're seeing what they can pull in with that net. So right now, current me prefers the international wide net because it allows me to put things out that I've been working on. But the interesting fun side of me is like, I want to see if I can make a game with like only 4 red pieces or whatever. And some great games have come out of those contests. Sometimes a really specific design constraint can spark a really creative idea, and that I think that there's definitely a place for that. Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Doesn't seem like so.
Doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in the Stockholm airport right now.
How come?
Funny story on that, actually. So when I went to Stockholm with my sister the first time, I told her, I was like, we just came from Chicago's airport. It's really loud. When you get to Stockholm's airport, it's gonna be 7 o'clock in the morning. It's not gonna be very loud. It's gonna be kind of quiet. It's gonna be a little bit different. She drops her luggage bag and it echoes through the entire terminal, and everybody in unison turns and looks away. So yes,
Yeah, that's the
yep,
Swedish way,
yep, very
basically.
much so,
Yeah,
very much so. Love you guys.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
66 contests is also a huge number, and I'm really impressed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wanted
Yeah,
to mention that as well.
well, I I'm the type of person that I'm just like, I'm gonna see like how much I can do, like what I can do. And I think that'd be another piece of advice that I would give, actually. If you're considering entering contests, don't just enter one, enter two or three. Because the likelihood of getting through in just one contest, not the best. But the likelihood of getting 1 out of 3, I mean, you have a chance, right? And kind of like I said before, if you enter something and it doesn't pan out, polish it up a little bit, enter it again and something else. Or, do what I did. Take the advice of the contest organizers in Hippodice, re-enter the game 2 years later and in a different way. And I think that's the best piece of advice I can give, because it's really easy to like beat yourself up. And trust me, I'm good at that sometimes. So, I mean, if that's you, just keep in mind that like just one rejection isn't like the end of the world. Like you can enter something else maybe. Johan had a question here.
Yeah, thank you for presentation.
Yeah,
I have quite a strange question maybe, but when
Sure.
do you scrap a game? When do you give up on it?
Actually, not a strange question. That's actually a really good question. So, I would say that you scrap a game, because I have kind of like a specific threshold in my own mind that isn't going to apply to every person, right? So you almost want to scrap a game when you start to lose the excitement and joy for it, right? If you're still super excited about this deck builder that is Egyptian themed, but it's been rejected in 3 contests, I mean, by all means, keep making iterations and change it and make it better, play test it. But just because it's been rejected 3 times doesn't mean that it's not going to be in another contest and do something. Like, one of the games that I made it through in Paris, went through like 4 different iterations, and it was rejected 5 times. So I would say that that's a matter of your own feeling about the design, to be honest, Johan. Like if you like it a lot, then keep making it better, because that love and that joy you have for that design is going to make its way into the design and somebody will notice it.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah,
thanks.
Anybody else? Not trying to put you on the spot. I just figured I would jump in and answer some questions if you had them.
Yeah, I think we are all eager to hear about the judging process as well now.
Cool.
Maybe there will be more questions by the end of the.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the judging side, I judged 2 completely different contests. All right. I judged on the Game Crafter, which is a little more laid back. I set my own rules for the contest. I made my own prizes for it. I 3D printed these trophies for the eventual top 3. So every contest that you enter on the Game Crafter, there's a different set of parameters, right? There are some things that are set in stone, right? And I kind of broke a couple of those rules because as a competitor, I didn't like a couple of them. So I actually asked if I could break them for my contest, and they said, yeah, I could. Now, judging from that side was really interesting, because I realized one of the most, and anybody who followed me or who has been on Facebook saw some of my thoughts from when I judged Cardboard Edison. Every few entries that I went through, I left some feedback, like just general feedback of how I interpreted the designs, like really great designs that I was able to have the honor of looking at. But rules are a huge sticking point. We all struggle with rules, but rules they were the biggest hurdle for me judging in Cardboard Edison. I almost wish I could have just had a video and a sell sheet and maybe like an overview page. Because going through the rules and trying to I'm trying to think of the right way to word this. Like being able to picture the game on a table, reading some of the rule books was rough. And the unfortunate part is these games were really, really great designs, and I could see the potential in them, and I could see that they had really awesome mechanics, and the hook was great. It's just the rules. You have like a 25-page rule book for a light game. That's too much, right? You have to, and if you're gonna have a 25-page rule book for a light game, which I doubt, but if you have a 25-page rule book for a light game, have a bunch of pictures, not just walls of text. So that was one of the first things that I noticed, like from a negative standpoint, that made it difficult to judge some of the entries. But also something I think judges really need to do, and sometimes maybe they don't have the patience to do so, but they really should. If they're going to step in the shoes of being a judge, they really need to do this. They need to look at the game as the game is being presented, yes, but they need to look at the game as the potential it could be, right? And sometimes that's really hard to determine. It's really hard to determine, oh, this game could be, this game could be like the next Azul or something. But if you're looking at it and you're looking at the rule book and you're on page 14 and you still haven't been to the first turn, that can cause a roadblock for the judges to actually like want to keep judging the game more. But I having competed in a bunch of contests and having felt like I was dismissed with some of my entries, I wanted to give that back, right? I wanted to give that back, that feeling of like actually understanding your design. So I judged 25 entries for Cardboard Edison, and I think I did almost 50 pages of feedback in total. Because if you're entering a contest like that, the likelihood of you making the finals is low. So what are you spending your money on? What are you taking your time to do? You want feedback. You want an idea of the judge actually understood your game or tried to understand your game. There's a couple that I tried really hard and I couldn't grasp the full concept, but I tried really hard to understand it. And the more that happens in this community, the better game designs we're going to have that eventually turn into published products. And I think if there's one thing that judging Cardboard Edison taught me, it's that you may not even get a finalist game in front of you. None of the games, there were 3 that I was ready to beat down a door for them to be a finalist. Like I wanted them to be a finalist so bad. But they weren't. And then I look at the finalist list and I'm like, holy crap, there are so many creative people out there, so many awesome designs, that, if I had seen those designs in front of me, I mean, I would have felt the same way. Right. So that's one of the main things about judging contests is putting yourself in the shoes of the actual designer entering the contest, instead of just thinking that you're on this pedestal and you're better than the designer that you're designing their game. You're your peers, right? You you both are creatives wanting to put your stuff out there. So why, why make somebody feel less than? Why not give them the time of day? Why not give them some feedback that might help push their game to where it's supposed to go? In hindsight, I, having went through the festival process last year, having went through the festival process this year, I felt like this year was a way weaker game. Last year was a strong game. I had more fun this year, I think, because of the community, the getting the perspectives from all of these people that I respect in this industry. That I'm actively working right now to change that game, to make it into something else. So having somebody who has that experience, or having somebody who has made it to that point, who's willing to lend a hand to somebody, is really, really important. And I think that's what judging is more about. It's less about picking the next great game, picking a winner, picking a finalist. It's more about helping people make the best possible game that they can. So that's what I aimed to do with the judging process for Cardboard Edison. What I think was kind of interesting about the judging process for Cardboard Edison, there are some things that I can't say because they're confidential for the process, obviously. But being able to judge the game on the scale that they provided presented some challenges that actually weren't bad challenges. They just forced you to look at the game in a different way than when I judged the Game Crafter contest, for instance, where I had my own system. I knew exactly, like how I was going to reach the final three. It was a little bit tougher for me to use their scale, which is easy, but tougher to use their scale to actually, articulate what I was saying in the feedback. But I think that that's a testament to a good system, though, because that means that it's forcing you to look at the game outside the box, as opposed to in a little tiny box that you can see everything. Hopefully that makes sense. But basically, it really comes down to seeing the game for more than the game's presented, but not giving the game too much license to be what it's not. And if that's confusing, I can clarify. But essentially, it means like giving every entry grace, but definitely it's a contest, right? So you have to judge it from the parameters that are given to you. And so that was one of the tough things with Cardboard Edison, is there were a couple games I really wanted to reward for a certain aspect, but I, following the system, it was potentially disqualifying. So anybody have any questions about that? Okay. And I'll actually pull this up here. Hold on a second. I'm going to pull up some, if you hadn't seen it, I want to pull up some of the feedback that I had kind of put out there as a general thing for the judging process. Okay, so I basically articulated, can you guys hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah.
So I basically articulated that less is more, all right? And this is something that we're all guilty of. I think all of us as designers, we want to throw as much into a game as possible to make it absolutely unique and have all these cool mechanisms and maybe the theme ties to like this one like circular rondelle, and over here you have a market of cards, and maybe it's a deck builder type of situation. The more things that you cram into a design, the more it loses its identity. And so what I noticed a little bit with some of the designs was a loss of identity. Like I couldn't really tell what the game was trying to be. I saw a lot of cool things in the game, right? But I wasn't sure what the game was trying to be. And that was something I noticed in the Game Crafter contest as well, where, I saw a few different mechanics that, they worked well together, but maybe if you take out this portion of it and maybe you streamline this portion of it, then it would be a better game. Great example. I'm gonna rag on my game from Festival this year. I missed a couple things. I missed a couple really, really, really important things that if I had discovered them and actually focused on them more 2, 3, 4 months before Festival, I probably would have had a better experience for the people at Festival, right? I was excited about having magnetic tiles. I'm realizing now for that specific design, maybe not the best choice, right? You want to go for unique, you want to go for exciting, you want to go for an experience, something that's different, something that's off the cuff, but sometimes less is more. I mean, I don't know if I think a few of you might have played Maz's game. Great game. Less is more. Like, it's a streamlined product, right? So that is one of the biggest pieces of feedback, aside from make your rules easier to understand, is less is more. I think that's one of the most important things that I learned from the contest in Italy, is talking to them. I'm like, oh, but I really like this. This is cool. No, get rid of that. And it feels like a dagger to the heart. If it's something that you've really enjoyed and you think it's cool and you've had 20, 30 playtesters tell you that's really great, the funny thing is you take it out, you put it back in front of those 20, 30 people. Guess what they say? I like it better. It's good you got rid of that. And it's baffling to me, because it's like that, people like the iteration that's in front of them, and you give them another iteration and they see it as better because you fixed some sort of problem in the design that makes it change. Change in a way that might tickle a part of your brain better, or it might give you more interesting choices, right? Because if there's a scarcity in the game, if there's something that's hard to achieve or something that you can't necessarily do very easily, it's going to be more desirable, right? And once again, going to my game from Festival, I hit a 4-player game, way too easy to get certain colors. That's a problem. That is a big problem, because you want people to feel like they have interesting choices, right? You want people to feel like they can't get everything that they want. You know that song, "You Can't Always Get What You Want"? That's a great way to see a design. Like, if people can do everything that they want in your design in the first 2 playthroughs, you need to fix that. But aside from that, we all kind of follow the same thought process, right? We get this really awesome idea, we go to the table, we streamline it, we play it with a handful of people, and then we want to know how it tests out in the world. And when you get out into the world, you realize like how much of a box you're actually in your mind. You realize, oh, that isn't as exciting. 10 people like it, but 20 people don't. I'm trying to think of a really good example. I was working on a word game, which I've been wanting to do a word game for years, but just never found a good way to do it. Found a way that worked, played it with a group of people. They liked it, but I could just tell at the table that it wasn't as interesting to them as it could be. And I've currently shelved it. So you asked Johan, like, when do you know when a game is ready to be shelved for now? Or, when do you decide to just push it off to the side? That was the moment I decided to push that game specifically off to the side, because I thought, you know what, if it's not eliciting the experience that I want them to have, then I don't want to get rid of it because it works. I mean, you can put together something from Temu and it'll work. It doesn't mean it's going to last. I mean, depends on how much you spend on Temu. I mean, if you spend like $20, maybe it will. But joking aside, though, like seriously, if you build something and it just works, you're gonna run into problems with it later. And I think that's part of what I noticed with some of these game designs. And what I actually noticed getting the games from the game crafter and judging them. I judged 7 games. And there were a couple games that when I looked at them in their presentation seemed all put together. When I played them, I realized, okay, there are some things that are not working properly, or some things that need to change. One of the most innovative things that I saw in that contest was a snowman made out of dice. So you stack the dice, and then the snowman melted, and the number on top of the stack of dice ended up being the number of your action, or like where you could go. Really, really great mechanic. Loved the game. It ended up getting 3rd. I thought it was going to get 1st. When I initially got those games, I initially thought it was going to get 1st. The thing is played the other games and they were more streamlined. That's really what it comes down to. How streamlined is your game? Is your game ready to hit a shelf tomorrow, or does your game still have some room to grow? And I've been on both sides of that. I've been on the side of like, oh crap, it's not working the way I want it to, and wow, this just fell into place. And a few of us are game designers. I mean, I don't know a couple of you, but I'm assuming we've all designed a game, or at least entertained the idea. So you know that like clicking into place feeling? That doesn't happen very often. So you have to understand that you're going to have to change something at some point. And I think some people are really afraid of change. And I will admit, I'm one of those people. Like, I am very stubborn, very stubborn about how I approach game design sometimes. And it has cost me a couple opportunities, right? But you live, you learn. You learn through the process. You keep going, you keep growing. And you end up being a better designer tomorrow than you were today. So, any other questions?
That's a lot of wisdom there.
I try.
Let that sink in for a moment. And yeah, please raise your hand if you have a question. I want to go back to something you said earlier about when you are judging in a contest, you have to look at what the game could be. I guess you have to balance that between the game as it is presented into the contest, and I mean, how much could that how much could it influence the judging when you think about what the game could be? Do you understand the question?
Yeah. If I'm getting it, you tell me if I'm wrong, but you're basically wanting to know, like how I go about the process of figuring out why it's worthy of judging in a certain way, like why, like what it could potentially be, as opposed to.
Yeah, exactly. How do you balance between the material that they sent to the contest or submitted and the game that you can see that this could potentially be? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
How does the balance?
That's a great question. So I'm going to kind of relate it to when I was talking about being somebody who competes in contests and what I want from my own side when I'm competing, right? when I submit something, I know that it's not completely finished yet. I know that there are ways that it can grow. There's probably a mechanic I haven't thought of, a way to tweak some math, right? But instead of looking at it from exactly what the game is, if you look at what it could be, that's where you become a better judge. So what I did was there was one game where you use these mechanisms, and you're moving around a physical, actual like table size physical space, and you were moving around trying to collect things, and the mechanisms that you actually like shot around collected the pieces. So I was saying there, from the material that they sent, I did not understand what the idea, like what the purpose of it was. But I also thought of it from like a designer brain, like, oh, you're collecting those things because of X, or if you do this, if you build this system, or you have this barrier, like you could have something really cool. So I think the balance comes in of what you could perceive the game to be on a shelf. I looked at every game in Cardboard Edison. If it's on a shelf, what do I like about it? What do I not like about it? What new thing is it bringing to the table? Is it innovative? Is it mainstream? Is it I had a game where you were like programming an AI. And I thought that was cool. I thought that was a cool idea, right? It was done in a different enough way. But there are a couple things that I had to kind of imagine, right? I had to sit there and picture like what it would look like on a shelf. And I think if judges do that, it really helps out the designer, because the gap between those two things, like for instance, Tobias, if you put a game out that's you're making ice cream cones, right? I'm just throwing out a simple, feel free to mine these ideas if you want.
Yeah, sure.
If you make a game where you're making ice cream cones, right? But your game doesn't really have any other direction to it, right? You're just making ice cream cones. What do you do with the ice cream cones? Like, are you selling them? Are you, is there like a dragon that loves ice cream that you have to give it ice cream so it doesn't destroy the village? Like these types of things. The gap between like what I saw on paper to where I could see it helped me determine where to rank it. If that gap is really large, the ranking was lower, unfortunately. If the gap was smaller, then the ranking was higher, because it meant that I didn't have to do a lot of imagination to figure out what the final product could be. Obviously that's a different way of approaching it. I know some people that are like, that's way too much work, but at the same time, you want to do due diligence, right? You want that designer to have the opportunity to present a vision, right? And have it be something that's understood, or at least, because in some of the feedback I did for Cardboard Edison, I was like, I could see this game being, right? And gave them a description of what I could see the game being. And I had one person come back and tell me that was really helpful for them. So I mean, that's all you can ask. That's all I wanted. I wanted to be able to help designers if I could, give what I didn't receive in feedback back. So, yeah.
Okay. So I guess if you want to narrow this gap between the pitched idea or the submitted idea and what the game could be, then you just need to polish your submission as much as possible and convey the idea in as clear a view as possible, I guess.
Yeah, I would say.
Do you have any other tips for narrowing the gap, so to speak?
We'll go back to that crazy example of the ice cream game, right? So you have the ice cream game. If you decide that you need to feed ice cream to this dragon or it destroys the village, right? It's totally outrageous. Like there isn't anything like that. Okay. But
Makes sense though.
the person that's judging it is going to be like, A, that's an interesting theme. Haven't seen that before. B, it's going to spark their curiosity. Okay. Why are we feeding this dragon ice cream? Why does the dragon like ice cream? Right. And 3, which I think is the most important part, is it gives you a vision that you may not have actually entertained. You may not even go in that direction. I know people that, make games and they think it's going in one direction and it ends up going in an entirely different direction. But that brainstorm of coming up with something fantastical or weird or crazy helped them realize, okay, maybe I need to dial it back just a little bit the other direction. And it helps you, speaking of balance, it helps you kind of find that balance of where you want to be. Do you want to be absolutely crazy? Do you want to be, super mechanical? Good example. My friend Cody from our playtest group, he has made a game called Hillbillies and Hover Cars, where you are literally racing these beat down machines, right? And you're riding through the swamp and you're trying not to hit alligators and stuff. Brilliant idea. Whenever I need inspiration for crazy themes, I will ask Cody, because Cody he has that creativity, right? But the thing is not everybody has that creativity. Everybody has their strong suit. So the best advice I would give is play to your strengths. If your strengths are the presentation of the game, not the theme of the game, make the game look better than everything else on the table, if you can. If theme is your thing, jump into it. You like role-playing games? I am terrible at role-playing games. We have somebody in this chat, I believe, that would have better advice on role-playing games. But some of the best role-playing experiences, from what I've heard, are the ones that are just the unexpected, right? The unexpected, the strange, the different ones. And if you approach game design from the same standpoint, then you're going to be looking for things that are more fantastical, things that are unique, because it is true. Mechanics, there aren't any new mechanics anymore. Like they've all been used, and I'm sure there's something down the line that hasn't been thought of yet, but we're all using the same building blocks to make the same thing, right? So that would be my advice, is pick a lane and stick to it. Do you really want a nice thematic game, or do you want a better mechanical game, and just let the rest fall into line? Because that gap is going to get larger if you don't know what the game's supposed to be. If you can't conceive of what the game's going to be, you're going to be so far away from your original vision that it's just not going to work. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So do we have any other questions? I also want to ask, did you have anything else you wanted to present, or are we opening up for questions?
I've kind of just been going off of the idea of, instead of me talking for an hour and a half, 2 hours on end, I just figured I'd stop every once in a while and ask if people had questions, get an idea, because I think the back and forth dialogue is really interesting, because you're bringing up things that I didn't think of. So
yeah, okay. Yeah, but if there is no more questions, I will let you continue. If you had anything else you wanted to talk about.
Just a couple more things.
Sure.
To be honest, when you enter game design contests, the ultimate goal is to get your game in front of people you don't know, or to, at the very least, get an idea of what your game could be from people you do know. So, the more and more you do these things, you start to know people, and obviously there's judging conflicts. So some, for Cardboard Edison, for example, if you know the designer, probably good if you recuse yourself from judging, because you could potentially judge their entry unfairly among others. So, but it's really hard with the industry as accepting and tight knit as it is, to not have to have your game in front of somebody that even on like an acquaintance level. So in those situations, if it's somebody you don't know, you definitely want to, present your ideas in front of the people you do know to get their perspective on it. Because when it really comes down to it, game design contests and judging game design contests are just two sides of the same coin. They're basically a vetting process, right? A game design contest could have a contract, or your position in front of multiple publishers as a prize or a trophy or whatever. As a judge, you're trying to vet that design to see if it's worthy of being in that situation. So it's two sides of the same coin. It's a vetting process. You're just applying for a job, right? You're applying your design for the worthy opportunity of it being looked at by more people. And in that aspect, it's really important to see that as it is, and try to build around that, right? So if you're just entering a contest because you think you're going to win $1,000, it's the wrong way to do it, because the likelihood of that happening, very, 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 very slim. But if you're entering the contest because you're like, oh, I know that person judges that contest, or I know that game has done well in that contest, and my game's kind of the same type of game. It'd be really cool to get that judging panel's feedback, or to see if it's what I can change on it, or I enter that contest because they're offering the chance to pitch your game in front of multiple publishers. That is why you enter game design contests. You enter game design contests to be better at game design. You enter game design contests sometimes for the opportunities they present, and you enter game design contests for the networking. I have entered all of these contests, and I was doing it honestly. I was doing it to see like what my designs could be, like how I could proceed, because I really liked game design. I started doing game design because I wanted to create things that didn't exist. Played games, wanted to create things that didn't exist. And in doing all of this, I realized, this process it can be grueling and tough and at times demoralizing, but it's also absolutely beautiful and rewarding and amazing. If you're looking at it from like the competitive side, if you don't make a contest, it can feel like a rejection of your design. But if you look at it from the standpoint of like, wow, I had that opportunity, which I'll be honest is really tough. It's really tough if you don't make it. It's really tough if you get that, really cold rejection email, or, just a kind of like a chipper, hey, your game's good, but you just didn't make the cut this year. Like that can suck. But the getting back on the horse and trying again and doing that and actually getting that opportunity, it's showing perseverance. It's showing that you're trying to make your games better. And it's showing that you aren't giving up. I mean, I'll be honest, I had some personal struggles in 2024, almost quit game design, honestly. I had the support of my sister. Eric is one of the main reasons why I'm still doing game design. He kept pushing me. So it's going to be tough sometimes, and you know, just like anything else. But I think that's where things get better, is when you make it out of the fire. 2021, I did absolutely nothing. I entered like 8 contests. I got 8 rejections. But 2022 ended up being better. 2023 was awesome. This year so far has been crazy. I'm very thankful for the people that I've met. I'm very thankful for the opportunities I've gotten, and you know, the friendships that I've been able to build through all of this, because it's really cool. And being able to sit here and talk to you guys for 2 hours. I think we lost a couple, but aside from that, it's been great. It's been quite the experience. And honestly, you know, judging gave me a perspective that I didn't have, that I honestly wish I'd had years ago. Because, you know, sometimes you get a rejection, you're like, they just didn't understand my game. You know, that they just don't understand. But then you look at it from the judging side, and then you realize, well, maybe you missed on something. Maybe you missed articulating what the game design was supposed to be. You missed your hook, or you know, the game just doesn't hit with that group of people. It's very possible. But you'll see a lot of people that'll say, oh, the hook, right? You have to have like this big hook. No, you don't need a big hook. You need to show that like the game design has something substantial. The X factor is something completely unpredictable. Like you can't predict the X factor. You could have the X factor in your game and you won't even know it until it happens. And I've been part of contests and events where the game that had the X factor won, and you look at it and you just have to admire from a distance and be like, they did it. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. And honestly, if you probably asked them and said, hey, you know, did you know that was going to hit? Like, did you know that was going to be that way? They'd probably be like, no. Because when you are too close to it, you don't see it. It's everybody else can see sometimes, but you can't. So, not to pick on you again, Johan, but it kind of goes back a little bit to what you said earlier too. You know, knowing when to, you know, dip out. You could stop entering that in the contests, or entering in contests, and 3 years later you enter it in something and it ends up being your biggest success. You just don't know. So
yeah, makes sense.
Yep. That's why it's kind of difficult to articulate sometimes what's better than other things, right? Because the market changes so much. You know, what's really popular this year isn't going to be popular in 2 years, because the market is going to be so saturated with those things that they're not going to be new and refreshing anymore. But just like music basically recycles, you know, like the sounds, game designs do the same. You know, who would have thought we would have been in a decade, you know, where some 80s style music came back? Nobody would have really thought that, you know, when we had a bunch of auto-tune in the 2000s. And if you just think of everything as kind of a cycle, you know, the things that are popular now will be popular again at some time in the future, but they're not always going to be popular. So windows of opportunity are the biggest thing. And contests help you see, are you in the window of opportunity? Or are you just in the wrong time for that game? And there's a couple of games right now that I have made that have done well in contests that I'm looking at right now and I'm going, what do I do with these? But I realize that in a couple years, they, the tides could change and they could end up being more wanted. I think one major complaint that I have, just as a whole, is there's too much of a focus on like throwaway things, right? We want something that's gonna cycle for, I don't know, 2 months and then on to the next. And that's kind of the mentality, right? It's like I have friends that it's like, oh, I'm playing this new game. Not a board game, but like a video game, for instance. I'm playing this new game. Oh, sweet. I ask them 2 weeks later, oh, sweet. How's that game going? I moved on to something else. That's what we have to fight with as designers. We have to fight with that. We have to fight with presenting our games, whether you go through the contest cycle or you go directly to a publisher or whatever. You have to fight with that idea of, as soon as I put that game out there, is it going to be in a bargain bin in a month? And that's one of the things I dislike, to be completely honest, is, we should be focusing on the quality. And I think that's what's so cool about game design contests, is game design contests tend to focus more on the quality, and the actual game design process, and, putting things out there that are, like rewarding substantial experiences, as opposed to, just, picking something and putting it on a shelf for 2 weeks. So, I don't know. I feel like it got really philosophical. Yeah, Tobias, go ahead.
Yeah, I just realized that when you enter a game in a contest, as opposed to pitching it to a publisher, entering a game in a contest means that you can probably go wild with the components, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can imagine that you cannot really estimate the cost for the game, and don't really put a lot of weight into that when you judge a game. So you focus more on the experience of the gameplay and stuff like that. And component count is very secondary, or even, not considered at all, maybe. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up, Tobias, because that's one of the things that I think game designers end up secretly having a pet peeve about, right? Now if you have like 500 of something, maybe a little bit excessive, unless it fits what you're doing. There are game designs that do that, but if you have like a board that's made of something different, or you have pieces that are 3D printed as opposed to cardboard chits, right? You'll hear like play testers, they'll sit down at the table, right? And we've all been there, and they pick up your components and they go, yeah, these would be too expensive to produce. And immediately from that point, that yes, they're giving you feedback that's helpful from like a publishing standpoint, right? But is that really helping your game design? Yes and no, but most of the time, no, because unless it relates entirely to what the game is about, it's not really important for playtesting the game, because people playtest games with pieces of paper and index cards and pieces from other games. If I go grab an Azul piece out of Azul and the person says, I don't know, these might be a little bit expensive to produce, you know what I mean? Like it takes away from the experience. So while that feedback is helpful, it doesn't help you. It doesn't help you make your game better. Because if a publisher is interested enough in your game, like here's the honest truth. If a publisher is interested enough in your game, they don't care if it's made out of like 24 karat diamonds. They will make it cardboard if they want to make it cardboard, right? So that's the thing, you know, like I could 3D print like this whole like elaborate thing, and a publisher could look at my game and go, yeah, we're not doing that. But we can do this. And I actually did have a talk with a publisher about that. Unfortunately, it was right around the time of tariffs and all the stuff going on, that literally my game could have been made, but the costs changed. So to focus entirely on the end game and what the components are going to cost, you don't know. 5 years from now, like, we could find a new way of making plastic that's super sustainable, and everything's made out of plastic, right? You just dissolve it in water or something. I don't know. I'm being facetious, but still, like, in 5 years, who knows what the landscape is going to look like, right? So why are we say? I'll get off my soapbox, but why are we sitting here looking at like what the components look like right now when it's not even in front of a publisher? So yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's basically for the publisher to decide if the game is too expensive or not.
Yeah, it's the publisher's discretion. Exactly. And and when you go through the process, they could tell you, oh, we need to get rid of half of these components. So, you know, you're spending all this time trying to figure out how to fit within a certain parameter. And then, you know, the goalposts change, right? It's like playing, I won't say soccer, sorry guys. It's like playing a game of football, and you're about ready to go in for goal, and the goal moves 10 meters to the right. You know, like, it's kind of hard to score if the goal is moving, right? It's interesting you bring that up though, Tobias, because it's I think that's something that people think is viable feedback, but it's really not helpful for the overall game itself. Depending on where it is in the design process. I mean, if you're a publisher and you're asking inputs from playtesters or whatever, or, you know, I wouldn't do this because of X, then yeah, that makes more sense. But if I'm just starting out like a month into a festival game, and somebody says, oh yeah, your components are too, like, no, I still have like 6 months to go to present at a festival. I'm not even thinking about that. Like, yeah. So
yeah. Okay, I think we can ask again if there are any other questions, and I think maybe we should wrap this up
sure.
quite soon. Or did you have something else that you want to talk about?
Honestly,
please go ahead.
Pretty much covered everything.
Yeah.
I would be, because I know everybody might be kind of shy. I would be kind of interested, you know, for the people that are still left in the session here, you know, if there's something like that you're working on, or, you know, something that, you know, something you'd like to know as far as contest submissions, whatever, just kind of go through, and even if it's like 4 words, because I know what it's like to be shy and not want to talk. I've been on work chats at my day job where they're like, everybody say something. I'm like, yep, present.
Yeah, but, and as usual, you can also write in the chat, and we can read it out if you have a question that you don't want to say out loud. But I can start off because I have a few questions left.
Okay. Sure.
But yeah, so one of how much time do you usually spend getting together the materials to submit a game for a contest? I can imagine that it is reduced if you submit the same game to a lot of different contests, but I mean, then you can divide up the time between those contests. But I mean, if you have a game that you are you have designed it and you feel like it's ready to go to a competition, then how much time do you usually spend creating a video and well, rules document maybe, or a pitch? Yeah.
Well, to be honest, like every night I have a document on my computer, and I have like the schedule of things that are happening for the year. And I'll go through and I'll say, okay, you know, I'm working on X thing, Y thing, Z thing. Do I want to submit it? Do I want to keep working on it? You know, what have you. And then for each of the contests, I have like the submission date, when the submissions close. And then off to the side, I'll have like another document with rules, or like Adobe Illustrator with the rule book that I am working on, so I can make some changes, change graphics and stuff. And I literally will work on stuff every single night when I'm sitting in front of sitting on the couch in front of the TV, even if it's for like 5 minutes. Be like, oh, you know, I played this game, I had a rules change. I'll go in, I'll make the rules change. And those incremental changes make it easier to get to that contest deadline and then be able to submit it. Because if I'm looking at the contest specifically and I know that something fits it, or I'm starting to work on something and I know that I might want to take a chance with it to see what happens, kind of like I did with Score the Floor, to be completely honest with you. I looked at it and I said, okay, I think it's ready, and I'm gonna look at each of the different parts of it and see if it's a coherent idea. And then the bulk of it is either finishing, like re-recording a video or something last minute, or spicing up a pitch document, something like that. I don't, and I think I saw Anders had said something. Yeah, said unrecorded post-session wind down.
Yeah, we usually take a short break after we are done, and we stop the recording and we chat for a bit more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we can definitely do that. But basically, long story short, I'm constantly working on things incrementally, so that when I do get to those deadlines, they're not as daunting. Because if you try to do everything at once, you put out a rushed product. I've done that. I actually did that for Cardboard Edison 1 year. I would not recommend doing that ever again. It's stressful. You know, like I created a video in 24 hours. Worst experience of my life. While working on a rule book, no, I'm good. I would not recommend doing something all in a short period of time. I'd recommend working on it bit by bit by bit by bit, to the point where you've built up this thing and you know whether it's viable or not. Because you may be working on it during the process and realize it's not. So, yeah, does that answer your question there?
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Now Johan has raised his hand as well.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
I was curious when you mentioned like that you change a rule. It got me thinking about versions of the game.
Yes.
Because I'm and how you work with that could be interesting. I can just describe like my process right now. I'm working on a game.
Yeah, we'd love to hear it.
Which I call Rough the Way. I have like 2 designs in mind now, like in a split version. One is like action centered. You have 2 different kinds of actions, and the other way, and you also use those actions to draw cards, so it gets a little bit clunky, but it's also like a part of the game, so it's more choices and they are informed, so I think it's like it's working. But the other way is to like automate the draws, so you, for example, you get it each turn, you draw 5 cards and then you discard, etc. But like it's a card game, so I have a lot of cards in it, so I got a lot of feedback on that as well, so I really took that to heart, not to listen to that maybe too much. But it's 250 cards in the game currently, so it's a lot of cards, and I can reduce that, but that's just a parenthesis. But these cards are designed differently depending on like your like the way I take in the game. So right now I have 2 versions. But how do you work with versions usually of the game? Do you like do small incremental changes, or you do like large saves of the game and then that you can like rewind to?
Well, I'll tell you what I do, and I'll tell you what a couple of my friends do, because one thing that I've learned is what works for one person doesn't work for all. So what I would tell you may not work for you, but what my friend does may work for you. What I do personally is I wait until there are, kind of like a cluttered freeway, right? I wait until there's enough cars cluttering the freeway that I'm like, okay, we need to clear this out. And I'll make the rules changes based off of like a Word document or something. And then I'll save it and I'll name it like Retro Tetro rules, April 2026, right? And then that's my versions. Now, I have a friend that does it differently. They make an incremental change every single time and change the rule book every single time. So they have like version 1.02, version 1.03, version 1.04. There's a pro and a con to both of those, right? There's you have a lot to go through with my method, because you're going through a Word document trying to figure out, oh, that's bolded because that rule changed. On the other side, however, you have, oh my God, what version am I on? Am I on 2.5 or 2.51? So that those are two different ways to do it. Those are two different ways. It all depends on how your brain works too. Like if the idea of having 100 rule books that are version 1.02 to 2.5 or whatever, if that causes you extreme anxiety, do not do that. But if you'd rather type it out on a Word document and bold your changes, that's probably the way to go. But I'm biased because that's what I do. Also, I want to tell you though, Johan, like just because you have 250 cards in your game doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. I mean, Valeria, Card Kingdoms of Valeria has like what, 400, something like that. I can't. Have you guys played Card Kingdoms of Valeria?
I have not.
Maybe it's named something different in Europe. I don't know, but that game has a ton of cards, but they have a purpose. Like all of them have a purpose. So I would just say for you, like if you're getting
my
feedback,
son is screaming, I need to leave. Be right back.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you're getting feedback that you have too many cards, I'd ask why. Like, do you think I have too many cards because you don't like the fact that I have too many cards, or do you think I have too many cards because you found cards that don't make sense or don't work, or don't have a purpose? So just a side thing, like you mentioned the 250 cards, and I felt like my statement earlier might have seemed like an attack on your design. It wasn't.
Yeah, I think he had to go. I'm not really sure.
Oh,
but,
okay.
yeah,
Well, he can see it on YouTube, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you can. Yeah. Do we have any other questions? We will conclude the recorded part of the session in about 5 minutes at most. But earlier, if you are done with your questions, basically.
Honestly, I'm good. I'd love to hear some other perspectives if you got them. Help people out as much as possible.
A final question from me. This is the last one I have written down for now, at least.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite design contest as a participant, of course?
Okay, so I feel like this is like this is a hot
no
button
wrong
topic,
answer,
right? Because I have people associated with two contests that are like very dear to my heart, or events. Sorry, Munchkin. But oh my gosh, it's like picking between children. It really is. Because I
understand. That's okay.
I've had
if you can name 3.
Oh, you're fine. For the sheer like beginning to end process, I think the one in Italy, and I'm partial to that one just because that has helped lead me to my first major contract. Right. And I liked that I could kind of go back and forth and talk about my design and work towards something. And it helped me get from the design process to the finished product. That being said, like, it's a tie with Fastival. And I'm not just saying that. Like, I have loved Fastival so much. It has been such an awesome experience, and I have met great people. And my sister and I were sad to leave this year. The day that we drove back. Oh, thanks. Because the people are so lovely, and it feels a little bit like a second family. You know, people were joking with me, you know, about, I think it was Maz was joking with me about, you know, being an honorary Scandinavian, and I already feel like it, you know, I just, but, you know, it's tough though, because every single one of them has given me like a really cool experience or some sort of memory. But yeah, so, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And well, I think we still don't have any other questions, so I think we will wrap this up, take a short break, and then we can continue discussing contests and whatever, if you are up for it. So a big thank you, Aaron, for doing this. And okay, now we have a question.
It always happens that way.
Go ahead, Henrik. Yeah, a quick one.
Sorry, it was just a misclick from me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
No
well, I've heard your voice. I've heard Johan's. I'm calling you out, Anders. And I'm calling
that's
you.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
People don't need to. People don't need to talk if they don't.
No, they don't need to talk. I appreciate you all for being here, and
we are really grateful that you could join us and talk about your experiences and share your wisdom. So I think. Oh, and also thank you to everyone else who participated tonight. It has been a really great discussion, I think.
I think so too.
So now we will take a short break for 3 to 5 minutes, I think, and then we will be back and continue talking for as long as we want to, basically. Yeah, so I will stop the recording, and again, thank you everyone for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Bye.